Human veteran saves orc girl in battle. The next day, they receive an unimaginable visit. There are moments in life where everything you thought you knew gets shattered in the space of a single heartbeat. For Marcus Hale, that moment came on a battlefield that smelled like copper and smoke, when he looked down at a dying orc girl and realized she had the same terrified eyes his son had worn 10 years ago. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Marcus had been killing for 15 years. Not because he enjoyed it, though some soldiers did, and that was its own kind of horror, but because that's what veterans do. You wake up, you sharpen your blade, you march where they tell you to march, and you put steel through anything green that moves. It was simple, the kind of simple that lets you sleep at night, even when your dreams are painted red. He was 38 years old and looked 50. War does that. It carves years into your face the way water carves canyons. Slowly at first, then all at once. His hands shook sometimes, just a little tremor when he thought no one was watching. His back hurt when it rained, and he carried a small iron brooch shaped like an eagle in his pocket, pressing his thumb against its worn edges whenever life required him to make a decision he'd rather not make. The brooch had belonged to his son. Past tense. The kind of past tense that doesn't get better with time. The battle that changed everything started like all the others, with drums. Orc war drums have a sound that gets into your bones, a rhythm that says we are coming and we are many and you are going to die. Marcus had heard that rhythm so many times it barely registered anymore. Just another day of green versus not green, as if the world could be divided so cleanly. His battalion held the ridge at Thornwood Valley. 300 men against, well, no one was quite sure how many orcs. Enough that counting seemed optimistic. Commander Raymond Kestrel rode up and down the line on his black horse, shouting encouragements that sounded rehearsed. The commander never removed his right glove, even in the heat of summer. Everyone knew why. An orc firebrand had gotten him years ago, left him with burns that never quite healed. He wore that glove like some men wore medals, a reminder of why they fought, a reminder of why orcs deserved nothing but steel. "Remember what they are," Kestrel shouted, his voice carrying across the ridge. "Remember what they've taken from us, from our families, from our children." Marcus touched the eagle brooch in his pocket, remembered. The orcs came at dawn, which was tactical. The sun behind them meant the human soldiers squinted through their own tears to see what was killing them. Marcus had to admit, whoever led the greenskins knew their business. The first wave hit like a hammer against glass. Orcs don't fight the way humans do. Humans have formations, strategies, the kind of discipline that comes from years of training. Orcs have fury. They come at you like a natural disaster wearing armor, all teeth and muscle and the kind of rage that makes tactical thinking seem quaint. Marcus killed 3 in the first 5 minutes. Muscle memory mostly. Parry, thrust, step back, repeat. His sword found green flesh the way water finds cracks in stone, inevitably, without thought. Around him, men screamed. Orcs roared. Steel sang its ancient song. It was in the chaos of the 7th wave, or maybe the 8th, time gets slippery when you're trying not to die, that Marcus saw her. She was young. Even through the green skin and the tusks and the warrior paint, he could see it. Young in the way that makes you realize someone's parents are probably waiting for them to come home. She couldn't have been more than 19, maybe 20. Small for an orc, barely taller than Marcus himself. She fought with the kind of reckless bravery that comes from not quite understanding that you're mortal yet. She'd killed 2 of his men. Good men. Men with families. And then an arrow caught her in the side. Not a clean kill. The kind of wound that takes hours, makes you wish it had been your heart instead. She went down hard, her axe clattering away across the blood-slicked stones. The battle flowed around her like water around a rock. In 30 seconds, she'd be trampled. In 30 minutes, she'd be dead either way. Marcus should have kept moving. Should have let nature take its course. Should have done what 15 years of war had taught him to do. Instead, he knelt beside her. Her eyes found his. They were amber-colored, shot through with veins of gold, and they were terrified. Not angry, not defiant, just scared. The way his son's eyes had been when the fever took him, when 8-year-old Samuel had looked up at his father and realized that Papa couldn't fix this one. "Please," she said in broken human tongue. "Please, no kill. Jira no want die." She spoke her own name. That was what broke him. Orcs weren't supposed to have names you could say out loud, names that made them people instead of problems. Marcus looked at the arrow, looked at her face, looked at his sword. His hand found the eagle brooch in his pocket. "Can you walk?" he asked. She stared at him like he'd started speaking in colors. Around them the battle raged. An orc war cry split the air. Somewhere a man was screaming for his mother. "Can you walk?" Marcus repeated. Jira nodded, not trusting whatever this was, but not quite ready to refuse a chance at living either. Marcus grabbed her arm, green skin, warm like anyone else's, and hauled her upright, pointed toward the tree line where the orc forces had emerged. "Run," he said. "Don't stop. Don't look back. Just run." "Why?" she asked. "Why human help?" Marcus didn't have an answer that made sense. So he said the only true thing he could think of. "Because I'm tired of watching kids die." She ran. He watched her disappear into the smoke and chaos, limping but moving, alive, and then he felt something fall from his pocket, the eagle brooch, slipping free. It hit the ground with a small metallic ping that shouldn't have been audible over the roar of battle but somehow was. He reached for it. A massive orc crashed into him from the side. By the time Marcus had dealt with that particular problem, dealt with it in the permanent sense, the brooch was gone, trampled into the mud and blood and ash of Thornwood Valley. The battle lasted 3 more hours. The humans won, technically. They held the ridge. But winning felt like a word someone had made up to make losing sound better. 97 men had marched up that ridge at dawn. 43 walked down at dusk. Commander Kestrel called it a victory and started planning the next march. Marcus walked home in silence. His house sat on the eastern edge of Millbrook, a village small enough that everyone knew everyone else's business. It was a modest place. 2 rooms, a fireplace that smoked when the wind came from the north, and a garden his wife had planted before the plague took her 6 years back. He'd kept the garden going, didn't know why. Maybe because letting it die felt like losing her twice. He stripped off his armor in the yard, letting the pieces fall where they wanted. Blood had gotten into the cracks, dried dark. It would take hours to clean properly. Tomorrow's problem. Inside, he poured water from the well bucket and scrubbed his hands. The water ran red, then pink, then clear. His hands never quite felt clean anyway. He sat at the small wooden table his father had built, put his head in his hands, and tried to understand what he'd done. He'd saved an orc, an enemy. The thing that had killed his friends, his neighbors, probably the thing that would kill him eventually. But all he could see were those amber eyes, that fear, that name. Jira no want die. None of us do, Marcus thought. None of us ever do. He didn't sleep that night. Kept seeing the moment over and over. Kept reaching for a brooch that wasn't there anymore. His son's brooch. The last piece of Samuel he had left, and he'd lost it saving an orc who'd probably grow up to kill more humans anyway. "What kind of man does that make you?" he asked the darkness. The darkness, as usual, didn't answer. Dawn came whether Marcus was ready or not. That's the thing about dawn. It doesn't care about your crisis of conscience. The rooster next door started crowing. Light leaked through the window cracks. The world insisted on continuing. Marcus was pouring cold breakfast porridge into a bowl when someone knocked on his door. 3 heavy strikes. Deliberate. The kind of knock that suggests the person on the other side isn't going to take silence for an answer. For a moment, Marcus considered pretending he wasn't home. Then he remembered he was a soldier who'd fought in 93 battles, which made hiding from a door somewhat pathetic. He opened it. The orc standing on his threshold was absolutely enormous. 7 feet of muscle and scars and the kind of presence that makes the air feel heavier. His skin was forest green, crossed with old battle marks that told stories Marcus could read like books. Tribal tattoos ran up both arms, marks of rank, of kills, of honor. He wore leather armor decorated with bones that probably used to be attached to things that were now very dead. His eyes were the same amber gold as, oh no. Behind the giant stood another orc, only slightly smaller, watching Marcus the way a wolf watches a rabbit. His hand rested on an axe that looked like it had ended several conversations permanently. "You are Marcus Hale," the large orc said. Not a question. His voice had the texture of grinding stone. "You fight at Thornwood Valley yesterday." Marcus's hand moved toward his sword before he remembered he'd left it inside. Probably for the best. If these orcs wanted him dead, a sword would just make the process more embarrassing for everyone involved. "I am," Marcus said, because lying seemed pointless. "And you are?" "Thukmar Ironhide," the orc said, war chief of Bloodpeak clan. He paused and something shifted in his expression, something almost human. "Father of Jira." The world tilted slightly. Marcus gripped the doorframe. I come to kill you, Thukmar continued conversationally. Is what honor demands. You touch my daughter. Put hands on her in battle. Should gut you slow, yes? Should hang your bones from my war tent. Marcus nodded slowly. That seemed fair, from an orc perspective. But, Thukmar said, and the word hung in the air like smoke. Jira tell me different story. She say you save her. Pull arrow from her side. Tell her run. Give her life when you should take it. The smaller orc, Brogath probably, given the cautious way he watched Marcus, shifted his weight. Brogath not understand, he muttered. Why human help? Makes no sense. Humans kill orcs. Is how world works. Brogath, Thukmar said without looking at him. Quiet now. He turned back to Marcus, and for a long moment, the two of them just stared at each other across the threshold. A veteran soldier who'd fought for 15 years, a war chief who'd probably fought for 30. You have family? Thukmar asked finally. Had, Marcus said. Past tense. Thukmar nodded like that explained something. Jira is... He paused, looking for words in a language that wasn't his birth tongue. Jira is last. I have 4 sons once. Strong boys. Good warriors. All dead now. Just Jira left. Only daughter. Only child. His massive hand reached into a leather pouch at his belt. She finds something. On battlefield. Say belongs to you. Say is important. Make her promise to return. He held out his hand. In his palm, smudged with dried blood but unmistakable, was the eagle brooch. Marcus stopped breathing. She clean it, Thukmar said quietly. Spend 2 hours scrubbing blood off. Say if human give her life, least she can do is give back his piece of sky. Piece of sky. That's what the eagle meant to her. Marcus took the brooch with shaking hands. It was warm from being in Thukmar's pouch. Still slightly damp from being cleaned. He could picture it, a young orc girl, arrow wound still fresh, using water and cloth to clean a human artifact because it seemed important, because someone had shown her mercy, and she wanted to return the kindness. My son, Marcus said, his voice rough. This was his. He died 10 years ago, 8 years old. I've carried it every day since. Thukmar was quiet for a long moment. Then, orcs have saying, blood debt. You save child's life, family owes you. Doesn't matter if child is orc or human or goblin or anything else. Life is life. Debt is debt. I don't want anything, Marcus said. Is not about want. Thukmar replied. Is about honor. You think orcs have no honor? You think we are just monsters with axes? His voice rose slightly. I am war chief. I lead 3,000 warriors. I burn 12 human villages. I kill more of your people than you have fingers to count. And I am here, standing at door of enemy, returning piece of eagle to man who saved my daughter. You think that is easy? You think my warriors understand? Half of them want my head for this. Brogath shifted uncomfortably. Brogath definitely does not want Warchief's head. Brogath is loyal, but Brogath also confused. Thukmar ignored him. You saved Jira. Blood debt says I give something equal, but how you measure, how you put value on daughter. He shook his head. Cannot, but can try. I don't, Marcus started. Let me finish, Thukmar interrupted. You are veteran. You fight for kingdom that doesn't remember your name. Live in house that falls apart. Eat cold porridge alone. I see the sadness in you. Is same sadness I carry. Same weight of watching everyone you love disappear. He wasn't wrong. Marcus hated that he wasn't wrong. I offer you choice, Thukmar said. Not payment. Not buying honor. Just choice. You want peace? I make peace. My clan. We stop raids on human villages in this region. You want gold? I bring gold. You want land? I give land. You want me to walk away and never speak of this? I do that too. Marcus turned the eagle brooch over in his hands. It caught the morning light, throwing tiny reflections across the door frame. His son had loved birds. Used to stand in the garden for hours, watching sparrows. Said he wanted to fly someday. Why? Marcus asked. Why any of this? You could have just not come. Jira's alive. The debt is paid. You don't owe me anything. Thukmar's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile, though it was hard to tell with the tusks. You really not understand? Even now? He shook his massive head. You gave mercy when world said give steel. Showed my daughter that maybe humans not all same. That maybe green and not green is stupid way to divide life. He gestured at the brooch. And now she want to be healer. Not warrior. Healer. Says if one human can choose life over death, maybe she can too. First orc healer in 5 generations. He laughed, but it sounded more like pain than joy. Makes her weak in eyes of clan. Makes her target, but she doesn't care. Says she saw something in Thornwood Valley that changed her. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. I didn't want another kid to die, he whispered. I've seen too many, carried too many, burned too many. I couldn't, not another one. They stood there in silence, human and orc, enemy and enemy, father and father. Is same, Thukmar said finally. Is exactly same. You protect, I protect. Rest is just politics. Marcus finished. Yes. Stupid human word. But yes. From down the street, Marcus heard voices. Neighbors probably, starting their day. In about 30 seconds, someone was going to see an orc war chief standing at his door and panic would ensue. You should go, Marcus said. Before. Too late, Thukmar said. Looking past Marcus's shoulder, Marcus turned. Hugh the blacksmith stood in the middle of the street, hammer still in hand from his morning work. His mouth hung open. His son had died in an orc raid 10 years ago. The same raid that had taken Samuel. Marcus, Hugh called out, his voice thin with confusion. What in the gods' names? More doors opened. More faces appeared. Old Judith from the bakery, William the miller, Sarah who'd lost her husband last spring, all of them staring at the impossible sight of Marcus Hale having a conversation with an orc war chief instead of putting a sword through his throat. This will be problem, Thukmar observed. Somewhat, Marcus agreed. Hugh started walking toward them, hammer raised. Get away from him, you green bastard. Marcus stepped between them. Felt like a suicidal gesture, but then again, most of today felt suicidal. Wait, he said. Just wait. Wait? Hugh's face was red. Wait while an orc stands at your door. While the thing that killed our sons. He's returning something, Marcus said, holding up the eagle brooch. Samuel's brooch. I lost it in battle and his daughter found it and made him bring it back. The street went quiet. You could hear the wind through the apple trees. A bird somewhere, singing like the world wasn't ending. His daughter? Hugh repeated slowly. Marcus nodded. Who I saved. In Thornwood Valley. Instead of killing her like I should have. More silence. The kind that happens when people are trying to process information their brains aren't equipped to handle. You saved an orc, Hugh said flatly. I did. You're a traitor, someone shouted from a window. Possibly, Marcus agreed. Hugh lowered his hammer, but only slightly. He looked at Thukmar, then at Marcus, then at the brooch. They killed my boy, he said, his voice breaking. 10 years ago. Thomas. He was 14. Wanted to be a blacksmith like his old man. They burned him alive when they torched the northern farms. Thukmar met his eyes. I lose 4 sons. All warriors, all brave, all dead. Different wars. Same pain. It's not the same. Hugh spat. Is exactly same, Thukmar replied. You think orc fathers don't weep? Don't wake at night remembering? Don't keep sons things because throwing them away feels like killing him twice? He gestured at his armor. I wear bone of my eldest son. Thrak. He die at 20. Human spear through throat. I hold him while he drowns in his own blood. You think that is different from your pain? You think green blood hurts less than red? Hugh's hand trembled on the hammer. For a long moment, Marcus thought violence was inevitable. Then the blacksmith's shoulders sagged. Gods, he whispered. What kind of world is this? Broken one, Thukmar said, but maybe not broken forever. More people had gathered now. 20, maybe 30. The whole village would know within the hour. By nightfall, Commander Kestrel would hear about it. By tomorrow, you need to go, Marcus told Thukmar. Now, before this gets worse. The war chief nodded. Blood debt is paid. Brooch returned. But offer stands. You want peace? I give peace. You want meeting? I meet. You want nothing? I give nothing. Your choice, Marcus Hale. He turned to leave, Brogath falling in step behind him. Then he paused. Your son. He would be proud, I think. That you chose life. Is harder than choosing death. Always harder. Marcus watched them disappear into the tree line at the edge of town. Watched until even the shadow of them was gone. Then he turned to face the gathered villagers. I can explain, he started. Explain to the commander, Hugh said quietly. Because he's going to want you hanged for this. Hugh wasn't exaggerating. By midday, Commander Kestrel was at Marcus's door, and he was not alone. 6 soldiers, full armor, hands on weapons. Marcus Hale, Kestrel said, his voice formal, military. You are accused of treason, of aiding the enemy, of collaboration with Orc forces. He gestured to the soldiers. You will come with us. You will face tribunal. And if found guilty, which you will be, you will hang before sunset. Marcus had expected this. Somehow, it still hit like a kick to the stomach. I saved a girl, he said. That's all. Just a girl who was bleeding out. A girl who will grow up to kill more of our men, Kestrel snapped. A girl whose father has murdered dozens of our soldiers. You showed mercy to the enemy. That's not heroism. That's treason. He stepped closer, and Marcus could see the fury in his eyes. The grief. The old scar hidden under that glove. I had a son, too, Kestrel said quietly. Did you know that? Thomas, 8 years old. Same age as yours when he died. Except mine was killed by orcs, burned alive when they raided the northern villages 10 years ago. Marcus froze. You're Hugh's brother, Kestrel confirmed. Thomas was my nephew, my godson. I held him at his baptism, taught him his first prayer, found his body in the ashes. He grabbed Marcus by the collar. So don't you dare tell me about mercy. Don't you dare stand there and act like showing kindness to those animals is anything but spitting on every child they've murdered. I'm sorry, Marcus said, and meant it. I'm sorry for your loss. For Hugh's loss. For every father who's buried a son. But I can't. He stopped, started again. I can't keep killing children because their parents killed ours. At some point someone has to stop, or it's just death forever. Kestrel released him roughly. Then you're a fool. And fools don't last long in war. He nodded to the soldiers. Take him. They bound Marcus's hands, led him through the village like a criminal. People watched from windows. Some threw stones. Some just stared. Hugh stood in the doorway of his forge, face unreadable. They locked Marcus in the guardhouse, a glorified shed with bars on the window. Left him there to contemplate his choices, his imminent death. The fact that doing the right thing apparently gets you executed. He sat on the cold floor and held the eagle brooch. Wondered what Samuel would think. Wondered if his son would be proud or ashamed. Wondered if it mattered. Night fell. Marcus watched stars appear through the barred window. Counted them, lost count. Started over. Sometime around midnight he heard shouting, then screaming. Then the door to the guardhouse exploded inward. Thukmar Ironhide stood in the doorway, backlit by torchlight, covered in blood that probably wasn't his. Behind him, Brogath held off 3 soldiers who seemed to be reconsidering their career choices. Blood debt is not paid, Thukmar growled. Saved my daughter. Now I save you. You can't, Marcus started. Watch me. Thukmar ripped the cell bars from the wall like they were made of kindling. Grabbed Marcus by the arm. We run now. Talk later. If I leave, they'll call me a deserter. A traitor. I'll never be able to come back. Thukmar stared at him. They already call you traitor. Already plan to hang you. What is more traitor than dead traitor? He had a point. Marcus ran. They made it to the tree line before Commander Kestrel caught up, leading 20 soldiers, all armed, all angry, all very much prepared to kill an orc and recapture a traitor. Stand down, Kestrel shouted. Release the prisoner. Thukmar laughed. Actually laughed. It was the kind of laugh that suggested he'd fought worse odds before breakfast. You want him? You come take him. There are 20 of us, Kestrel said. 2 of you. 3 if we count the prisoner, which we don't. Brogath counts. Brogath muttered indignantly. Brogath is formidable. Thukmar held up a hand. Wait, I have better idea. He looked at Kestrel. You want trial? Fine. I give trial. But not human trial. Not orc trial. Both. We meet on neutral ground. 3 human judges. 3 orc judges. We discuss this. What Marcus did. We decide together if his crime or his honor. Kestrel laughed bitterly. Orcs don't have judges. Orcs have axes. And humans have nooses. Thukmar shot back. Is not so different. But maybe we try different. Maybe we try to understand before we kill. Why? Kestrel demanded. Why would you even? Because I am tired, Thukmar said simply. Tired of war. Tired of burning. Tired of burying sons. Marcus showed my daughter mercy. Made her want to be healer instead of killer. If one act of kindness can do that, maybe more acts can do more. Maybe we stop killing long enough to see if peace is possible. Kestrel stared at him for a long moment, then at Marcus, then at his gloved hand, where old burns from orc fire still ached on cold mornings. 1 trial, he said finally. 1 meeting. 3 human judges, 3 orc judges. If they find him guilty, you hand him over to human justice. If they find him innocent, he paused. Then I'll consider that maybe the world isn't as simple as I thought. Deal, Thukmar said immediately. And that's how Marcus ended up in the strangest tribunal in the history of warfare, standing in a neutral clearing while 3 human judges and 3 orc shamans argued about whether mercy was treason. The trial took place 3 days later. The location was a clearing halfway between human territory and orc lands, a place where neither side could claim advantage. Someone had set up benches. Someone else had brought bread and water, as if this was a marketplace negotiation instead of a trial that would determine whether a man lived or died. The human judges were Commander Kestrel, a priest named Father Benedict who'd lost count of how many funerals he'd performed, and surprisingly, Hugh the blacksmith. They wanted someone who's lost a child, Hugh explained when Marcus asked. Someone who understands the stakes. The orc judges were 3 shamans. Thukmar wasn't allowed to be one. 2 personally involved, they said. The shamans were ancient, weathered things with more scars than skin. They introduced themselves as Ruka, Naj, and Gorm. They spoke broken human tongue, but understood perfectly. Jira was there too. She sat at the edge of the clearing, bandaged but healing, watching with those amber eyes that had started all of this. Commander Kestrel spoke first. He laid out the case simply. Marcus had saved an enemy, had aided the orc forces by preserving one of their warriors, had shown mercy when doctrine demanded justice. This is treason, Kestrel concluded. There is no other interpretation. Father Benedict went next. He spoke about divine mercy, about forgiveness, about how the gods teach that all life is sacred. But, he added, his voice heavy, I have buried 73 children killed by orcs. I have held weeping mothers. I have watched fathers turn into hollow shells. So I understand why mercy feels like betrayal. Hugh spoke last among the humans. He was quiet for a long moment, just staring at the ground. Then, my son Thomas died because of an orc raid. I've hated them for 10 years. Spent every day thinking about revenge, about making them pay. He looked up at Thukmar. But you lost 4 sons, and I've only lost 1. So either you're lying about your grief, or... He trailed off. Or grief is grief, and pain is pain. And maybe we're all just fathers who've lost too much. The orc shamans conferred among themselves in their language, a guttural, rhythmic sound that felt ancient. Then Ruka spoke. Humans think orcs have no honor, she said slowly. Think we are beasts, animals, things to be removed. She gestured at Marcus. But this human, he see past green skin, see fear, see child, and he choose mercy. She paused. Is most orc thing I ever hear. We value strength, yes, but we value honor more. What is honor? Is doing right thing when easy thing is to do wrong thing. Naz nodded. Jira say human could have killed her, should have killed her, but didn't. Asked if she could walk, told her run. Risked own life to save enemy life. He looked at the human judges. You call this treason. We call this, what is word? Courage. Gorm spoke last. His voice was rough as stone. We have seen many battles, many deaths. Always same. Humans kill orcs. Orcs kill humans. Children grow up, become warriors, kill more, have children. Children become warriors. Forever. Never stops. He met Commander Kestrel's eyes. Unless someone stops. Unless someone says no more. Maybe Marcus is that someone. The clearing fell silent. Birds sang in the trees. Wind moved through grass. The world continued, unconcerned with human-orc politics. So what's the verdict? Marcus asked, because someone had to. The 6 judges looked at each other. Then, as if they'd planned it, they all stood. Not guilty, Ruka said. Not guilty. Hugh agreed quietly. One by one, they each said it. Even Commander Kestrel, though he looked like the words physically hurt. Not guilty, Kestrel said finally, but not pardoned either. You can't return to the army, Marcus. You can't live in Millbrook. The villagers, they won't accept you. Not after this. Marcus nodded. He'd expected that. But, Thukmar said, stepping forward, he can live with orcs, if he wants. Bloodpeak clan always needs warriors, especially warriors who choose mercy. Every human in the clearing stared at him. You're offering a human a place in your clan, Kestrel said slowly. Why not? Thukmar shrugged, a gesture that involved a lot of muscle. He saved my daughter, taught her new way of thinking. Maybe he'd teach others too. Maybe having human and orc clan shows everyone that green and not green doesn't matter as much as we think. He looked at Marcus. His offer, not order. You can say no. Can go somewhere else. Live quiet life. But if you want to try building peace instead of war, offer stands. Marcus thought about his empty house, his cold porridge, his garden full of memories. Thought about 15 years of killing and how tired he was of it all. He thought about his son, about that eagle brooch, about how Samuel had always wanted to fly. I'll need to get my things, Marcus said. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the center of Blood Peak Clan's main settlement, teaching a group of young orcs how to bandage wounds. Jira stood beside him, translating when his orc vocabulary failed. She was the first orc healer in 5 generations, and she'd taken to it like breathing. No, Marcus said patiently, as a young orc named Gresh tried to tie a bandage and nearly strangled his practice dummy. Gently, you're stopping blood, not killing it. The orcs laughed. They laughed a lot, Marcus had discovered. Louder than humans. More freely. Turns out when you're not actively trying to kill each other, orcs are surprisingly funny. Thukmar watched from across the settlement, talking with elders about establishing a trade route with the nearest human village. It was slow going. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight, but it was going. Once a week, Marcus walked to the border between orc and human lands. Sometimes Hugh met him there. They'd sit on opposite sides of an imaginary line and talk about their sons, about loss, about grief that never quite heals, but maybe, eventually, hurts a little less. How is it? Hugh asked during one of these meetings. Living with them? Marcus considered. Different, he said finally. They eat louder, sleep less, argue more, but... He paused. But they're just people, Hugh. Green people with big teeth, but people. They tell jokes. They worry about their kids. They burn dinner and curse about it. It's all just people. Hugh was quiet for a long time. Then, Thomas would have liked that, he said. Knowing that, he was always asking questions about orcs, why they fight, what they believe. I told him they were monsters. He laughed bitterly. I taught my son to hate something I'd never taken the time to understand. It's not too late, Marcus said. To understand, I mean. Isn't it? Thukmar lost 4 sons. You lost 1. He still believes peace is possible. If he can believe it. Hugh stood up, brushed dirt from his pants. I'll think about it. He paused at the tree line. Marcus, I'm glad you're not dead. For what it's worth. It's worth a lot, Marcus said. That night, Marcus sat outside his new home, a modest hut on the edge of the settlement, and watched stars appear. He held the eagle brooch, turning it over in his hands the way he'd done 1,000 times before. Jira approached quietly. She'd gotten good at walking softly, which was impressive for someone who weighed more than most humans. Marcus, you are thinking loud thoughts. Is disturbing the sleeping. He smiled. Sorry, just remembering. She sat beside him. For a while they just existed in comfortable silence. Then she said, Thank you, for saving me, for teaching me healing, for showing that mercy is not weakness. I didn't do anything special, Marcus said. I just didn't want another kid to die. Is most special thing, Jira replied. World is full of people who choose killing. Very few choose life. She gestured at the settlement around them. Now we have young orcs learning healing, have trade talks with humans, have hope that maybe war ends someday, all because you choose life over death. Marcus looked at the eagle brooch, thought about his son, who'd loved birds and wanted to fly, thought about how Samuel would never grow up, never become a father, never have the chance to choose mercy or violence, but maybe in some small way, Samuel was flying now. Flying in every life Marcus chose to save instead of take. Flying in every young orc who learned healing instead of killing. Flying in the slowly building peace between 2 species that had spent centuries convinced the other was nothing but an enemy. Do you think it'll work? Marcus asked quietly. The peace thing? Jira shrugged. Jira does not know. Maybe yes, maybe no, but she held up her hands, showing the calluses from learning healing instead of fighting. But at least we try. And trying is braver than never starting. From somewhere in the settlement, someone was singing. An orc drinking song about a warrior who fell in love with a mountain. It was off-key and enthusiastic and completely absurd. Marcus laughed. Then Jira laughed. And for just a moment, the world felt less broken. He stood up, tucked the eagle brooch back into his pocket. Come on, he said. I'll teach you that thing with the sutures I was talking about. Now, is middle of night. So, when did orcs start caring about daylight? Jira grinned, showing tusks. Jira likes the way you think. They walked back toward the healing tent together, human and orc, teacher and student, two people who should have been enemies but chose something else. Behind them, the settlement continued its evening routine. Fires burned, children played, families gathered. Life happened, the way it always does, whether we're ready for it or not. And somewhere in the darkness between human lands and orc territory, the first seeds of peace took root. Small seeds, fragile, the kind that might die if you looked at them wrong, but seeds nonetheless. And sometimes, that's all you need. A seed, a moment of mercy, a choice to give life instead of taking it. The world doesn't change all at once. It changes slowly, like water carving through stone, imperceptible day by day, but inevitable over time. Marcus had spent 15 years learning how to kill. Now he was learning how to heal. And maybe, just maybe, that made him braver than he'd ever been on any battlefield. Some victories aren't won with swords. They're won with bandages, with words, with the quiet courage of choosing peace when war is easier. And some days, that has to be enough. If you're still listening to this story, maybe you've learned something Marcus learned that day in Thornwood Valley. That the hardest thing in the world isn't fighting your enemies. It's recognizing that your enemies are just people who are also fighting. Maybe you've lost someone. Maybe you carry grief the way Marcus carries that eagle brooch. Maybe you know what it's like to be so tired of violence that you do anything, for just one moment of peace. And maybe, just maybe, you're braver than you think. Brave enough to choose mercy when the world demands justice. Brave enough to see past the easy divisions of green and not green, us and them, hero and monster. Because in the end, the world didn't need more soldiers. It needed fathers who were tired of burying sons. It needed daughters who wanted to heal instead of harm. It needed one veteran with a conscience and one orc girl with amber eyes and one moment of mercy that changed everything. Honor doesn't always look like a battlefield victory. Sometimes it looks like a man kneeling beside his enemy and asking if she can walk. Sometimes it looks like a father returning an eagle brooch to the man who saved his daughter's life. Sometimes it looks like choosing to live in a world where peace is possible, even when everything you've experienced says it's not. Marcus Hale never became a hero, never got medals or parades or songs written about him. He just became a man who chose life over death, who taught healing instead of killing, who believed that maybe, just maybe, the world could be better than it had been. And in the end, maybe that's the most heroic thing of all. If this story meant something to you, if it made you think about mercy and honor and the choices we make when no one's watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Stories like this exist to remind us that change is possible, that peace is possible, that we're all just people trying to navigate a world that's far more complicated than we'd like it to be. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and thanks for believing that maybe, just maybe, there's still hope for all of us. Blood makes you orc, loyalty makes you family, but mercy makes you human.